Fire it up. Just do your thing here, bud. Nobody's any better at this than you are. Have fun. Take a deep breath.
Give them hell at the end. You like this?
Fight like hell like we do every week. You are the best here.
Brett, be affirmative. You told me to get on. Info.
Ready. Ready. Go slow. Green, green, green.
Lock it down, lock it down.
I'm destroyed, and I just got drove through like 6 times on the 14th. What the f*** is he thinking? That is the stupidest thing I've seen in my career. Literally.
Everything you described is accurate. Haven't even finished the second stage yet. Half the field's wrecked.
Hell yeah!
11 got it.
Proud of you there, Matt. Good job, pal. Thanks, man. Good job all day.
Great work, my man. Great work.
Keep putting yourself in position, we'll win our share, right? We got one back today, brother. Good job.
10-4, great job, guys.
And welcome back to Racing in the Draft. My name is Mark. Thanks for showing up again tonight. Oh, we are getting down to it. 5 races left. Wyatt, what's going on, buddy? Yes, let's go. We're going to win some money this weekend. I feel it. I hope so. I hope so. I was close in Xfinity earlier today. Just barely missed out on making money. I was a little far off from making the big pot, but I needed SVG to have a much better race than he did. Put a little too much weight behind SVG, but Parker Kligerman really came home for me. Gosh, what a downer on him just missing that win. But either way, we are talking Cup Series racing. We'll discuss a little bit about the Xfinity race because of the new reconfiguration at the Bank of America Roval. Wyatt, how did your pick go last week? I can't remember if it's you or James that have the Survivor League. I wanted Parker to win. 20 feet. Maybe 15 feet. I'm not sure. Either way, it was so darn close. Yeah. So Kyle Larson is my favorite driver. So I always... No, it's James. Okay, that's what I sometimes mix the two of y'all up sometimes because you guys are both really good about chatting with me. But either way, hopefully James will tune in. I want to know how his Survivor League went. So I always listen to Kyle Larson's spotter and crew chief communication. And the Xfinity series, I just like enjoying and watching the races. There's some guys I don't like in the Xfinity series, but there's a lot of guys that I do like, and Parker is one of them that I enjoy. I listen to Parker's podcast. It's pretty good. It's not just all NASCAR. It's some other forms of motorsports and sports in general, but he and Landon Castle are a pretty funny duo to listen to sometimes if you're ever listening for a little bit different podcast that still kind of revolves a little bit about racing. But either way, yeah, Parker, gosh, I hope Parker gets a win before he retires. Either way, back to the Cup Series. Hopefully your Talladega turned out really well. So before we talk about the race this weekend at the Roval, let's go back to Talladega. Oh, what a crazy race. Again, the biggest of big ones. And it took a long time to get to that point. But Ricky Stenhouse Jr., can we almost start to call Ricky Stenhouse Jr. the new Dale Earnhardt Jr. or Denny Hamlin of super speedways? Man, this guy just always seems to find a way to win at a super speedway every year. He won the Daytona 500 last year, and now he wins the Yellowwood 500 at Talladega. Parker's podcast is pretty good, and it's kind of underrated. He needs to do a better job. I think he just does it on X. That's usually where I listen to it on. He needs to promote it a little more on YouTube and some of the other podcast platforms. But either way, Talladega, the biggest big one ever, 28 cars, I think is what it was. And I wasn't sure it was going to happen this year. They had raced really, really clean. And if anybody else has listened to some of the other commentary that's out there. NASCAR and these super speedways need to figure out how to try their best to eliminate this fuel mileage funkeria that they've got going on, because that's the only reason they were 4 wide. They were all conserving, and they were just trying to get to a point to where their crew chief said, "Okay, you're good to make it to the end of the stage, so hammer down," and then they would spread back out to 2 or 3 wide. I don't know. Either way, it still worked out. We still had the. I'm never looking for the big one, and it really doesn't matter if you have the big one show up in or at these super speedways, because I mean they were 4 wide, 5 deep. Who's going to run the fastest lap there? I mean, it's going to be within 1/1000th of a second most of the time. That somebody in 14th, 18th, 31st is going to run the fastest lap. But either way. So let's take a look at our optimal lineup from Talladega. And as predicted, nobody in the top 10. In fact, nobody in the top 14 in Draftkings points started in the top 10. The highest starting spot was Kyle Larson, starting in 12th. Everybody else from 12th on back was probably somewhat in play. So there's that. After 2 hours of discussing it last week, the prediction came true again. But not surprised. Miley, what's going on? Hopefully you had a good Talladega race and you beat your brother again last week, hopefully. And as I was saying last week, don't take anybody in the top 10. Well, that kind of proved to be true. So hopefully you didn't take anybody in the top 10. Because if you did, you didn't have that great of a race. Unless you happened to have picked Ricky, Eric, Justin Haley, Carson Ostervar, and Brett Kozlowski and put somebody that started in the top 10 in that last spot. You may have been okay. Did I do good in my contest? I was very close to being on the profitable side. I missed by I think it was like $20 or something. But you gotta remember, I run total. So I only run 80 total different lineups, but I run them in lots of different contests. Like I do the 150 max. I do 80 lineups in that, and then I run 420 max lineups, and then I run my 3 favorite lineups. I run them in the max 3s or the single lineups. So I had 170 lineups total going, and like I said, I almost broke even. But my whole thing is, if I can always get at least half of my money back, and I do hit, once every 3 or 4 weeks. Usually, when you hit pretty big. So, like the Talladega truck race, ended up finishing first and winning $1,000. So that worked out. Yeah, no, only losing like $20 was good. I'm perfectly fine with that, because it was literally 1 or 2 guys in each lineup that, maybe having a Martin Truex Jr., where I was running Martin Truex Jr. instead of Brett Kozlowski or something along those lines, and it was just that close to getting it in there. But either way, Talladega, you can pretty much just guarantee Daytona and Talladega, you don't have to run guys in the top 10. Atlanta is becoming its own interesting racetrack, and like I said last week, I think Atlanta is going to start to run a little bit more like Michigan. Cindric and McDowell, what a disaster. Yes, if you played them, but once again, they started in the top 10. If you're looking for just a finishing spot, they were in position to finish well. But the Cindric thing, that was all Brad pushing too hard and not squaring up with Cindric. And Cindric also got a little too far out in front of Brad, but Brad's smart enough and Brad's done this enough And Brad Keselowski has won enough at Talladega. He knows that he was going to make too big of a run. Don't want to talk about Cindric. Did you take Cindric, James, last week? I hope you didn't take Cindric in the poll. If you did, I'm sorry. But either way, you can kind of see how the rest of this played out. The optimal lineup challenge with 5 races left. Christopher Bell still sitting in first with 11. Tyler Reddick with 9. Kyle Larson with 9. Brad Keselowski with 9. Will any of those 3 make a run at Christopher Bell before we get to Phoenix? Don't know. We'll see. All right, either way, that's Talladega. That's in the past. Let's head to the Roval. And the house that Jimmy Johnson at one point built almost has now become the place that AJ Allmendinger kind of has built, especially on the Roval. He had 4 straight wins at the Roval going into today's race. Even though Sam Mayer decided to get that win, I mean, AJ was still in contention all the way through that entire race. He won the Charlotte Roval here last year, but things are changing. Things are changing at the Roval for the Bank of America Roval 400. We have a new layout. We have new corners. We have new straights. We've got all sorts of fun stuff for this race. We are 2.28 miles in length, 17 turns in total. Race length is 109 laps. The Dominator points, which we will not fully have to worry about, of 76.3. Laps led of 27.25. Fast laps of 49.05. The reason why we don't really have to worry about Dominator points so much is not that somebody doesn't potentially become a Dominator. It's the total points are not there. And the fast laps will get spread out somewhat through the field. But laps led, there's just, I mean, you would have to lead most all 109 laps for the Dominator points to really come into play. And I just don't foresee that happening because of stage breaks. And we have people running for playoffs. They're securely in. So some are securely in or close to being in who are just going to try to get first stage points. And then you've got some guys that are going to try to be a race winner that are going to come in early, and there's all sorts of things going on. We'll discuss that as we kind of get further into this. AJ Allmendinger might be a must start for tomorrow. Yeah. He's really, really good here. And he and SVG both got a lot of practice today in the Xfinity car. I mean, the Cup car is going to run different, but anytime that you can just run a lap at road courses at speed, it's worth doing. So, yeah, I'm taking notes. Good for you, Miley. I mean, we're also on YouTube. You can always go back and rewind and see if you missed anything important. And you can always send a message if you have any questions later. I'll try to get back with you as quick as I can. Did he swap cars tomorrow or cruise? Can't wait for you to get to him. Get to him being who? Allmendinger? I don't know if anybody swapped cars. The only car swaps that I know of was the Sieg brothers swapped in the Xfinity series. Because Ryan's a little bit better than Kyle Sieg. And they're trying to get the other car numbers points up. AJ. Did AJ swap cars tomorrow or cruise? No, not that I'm aware of. But I also, just for information purposes, I was at a baseball tournament all day with my son today, so I spent about 7 hours there. So I have not been able to do a full dive research into the Roval. I've been watching this enough. I kind of know all the ins and outs, and I did watch Xfinity race while I was at the ball field. So he's in the 13th. Yeah, so no, AJ's been mostly in the So the only one that has been set in stone all year long is the 31 car in Daniel Hemrick. Everything else has been kind of up in the air. Between if Ty Dillon comes over and runs the car, or AJ runs the car, or just SVG runs the car, they all kind of are interchangeable. Now, AJ's got a crew chief that he likes, and SVG has got his crew chief that he likes. So those guys will stay with them. They will swap car numbers depending on sponsorships and those types of things. So, yeah, I'm not really that concerned about their car number. Yeah, I think SVG's in the 16. I'm pretty sure AJ is in the 13. The 13 is not a full-time ride. The 16 car is a full-time ride. If that helps. I can't stay, but what's up? What's up, Mark Fish? Everybody, this is Mark Fish, the guy. What's up, Fish? He and I race in a iRacing team together on Monday, Wednesdays, Thursdays. So, what's up, Fish? Glad you could join. I'll see you on Monday or Wednesday, bud. Thanks for stopping in. Make sure you hit the like button on your way out. All right, here are some of the new configurations. So up here, we'll just start at the start-finish line. So you go around, everything's the same until you get past turn 5. Once you get past turn 5, everything is different until you get back onto the actual oval part of the track. So from turn 5, they used to make a right-hand turn right here and come this way. Well, now they're going to go straight, and they've got this long sweeping right-hand turn, which has got a decent amount of speed to it. It's downhill, coming to turn 7. Well, turn 7, this used to be kind of a sweeping corner going up back onto the oval. Now it's almost a 180 hairpin turn where they've got to slow down to 25, 30 miles an hour, which is like crawling. Pit road speed's like 45 or 50. So for them to get down to like high 20s, low 30s, they're down into first gear. They're almost stopped. But this is an amazing opportunity for passing. SVG was passing 2 cars at a time, and the Xfinity race all raced today. Unbelievable passing zone. And if somebody tries to block that way, you can sweep out wide and get a much faster run down the turn 1, turn 2 of the oval. And then when you get back here to turn 10, it's different. So it used to be not as abrupt. Now it's almost a 90-degree abrupt turn that's only 53 feet wide. It used to be that this little sweeping little chicane that would, kind of help slow them down. Now it's like literally an abrupt left, right, back onto the track. I can see this part being chaos corner up through here, and I can also see this being a dive bomb spot to where you could easily take your car and some other cars out. And then after you get through with this chicane, you run back down through turns 3 and 4 of the oval track, past pit road, and get to this spot. So this is the last front stretch chicane, and it's almost another 90-degree turn. And this is also the restart zone, which is going to be a huge opportunity because you're running 130, 140 miles an hour coming into turn 15 that you've got to slow down to, once again, 20, 30, 35 miles an hour to make both these corners to get back onto the straightaway to get to the start-finish line. Well, today, we saw a massive pileup of 11 cars in the Xfinity Series just on the other side of turn 17 coming to the start-finish line. And that was a complete mess. Wrecked 11 cars. Sheldon Creed got knocked out of the playoffs because of it, I think. And Riley Herbst got knocked out of the playoffs because of it. So there are definitely a lot of pinch points now that are much more prevalent at this new changes to the Roval. So it will be very interesting to see if desperation starts to come into play for some of these playoff drivers, as their playoff hopes may come to a dwindle unless they start throwing Hail Marys. Let's see. I can't say, but what's up? Okay. What's up, Fish? We haven't talked about him. James, do I like the change? It seemed to play pretty well in the Xfinity series. It will be interesting to see how it plays with the Cup car, because the Cup car definitely runs much different than the Xfinity car. Even though I think it's going to be fine. If you like chaos, which as long as I know going in that there's a high potential of chaos, then I can set my DraftKings lineups accordingly. I don't like unexpected chaos, but this is probably going to create some chaos at certain points of these races, especially the restarts. Because these drivers are all really good at road courses. All these cars are very evenly matched. They're not going to be able to get away from each other as easy as they did in the Xfinity series earlier today. So, yeah, Miley, it's an oval track that they made into a road course, and then we'll go back in the spring and it'll be back to the oval. Yeah, it's a pretty cool layout actually. It's actually a lot of fun to drive, at least in iRacing. I've actually driven at Charlotte in the Richard Petty Experience. That's pretty wild. 157 miles an hour is my lap speed on the oval. That was crazy. The scary part is when you start passing people that are running much slower. But either way, so track comparisons. I mean, the Roval is kind of its own little beast. Kind of like the only two tracks that really are similar, but not even really, is Watkins Glen and Sonoma. I mean, Chicago Street Course is kind of its own little beast. It's very narrow. This new layout will play similar in a lot of ways to a Chicago Street Course, because it does have some pretty narrow spots on the course. So that's something to think about. But really, I mean, it's going to play like the Roval with a little more chaos. Optimal lineups from previous Rovals, so we kind of have an idea what we're looking at when we're setting up our lineups for this week. This is not, we don't see a whole lot of cars come from the rear typically, even on road courses. So as we can see, the lowest starting spot last year for the Roval was 20th, and he moved to 7th. Well, that's a place differential win. It's 13 spots. Anything over 10, I consider to be a win for place differential. But most everybody kind of started closer to the front and finished closer to the front. AJ Allmendinger, of course, won the race. He led 46 of the 109 laps. So that's right on the edge of being a dominator. I consider 30% or more of the laps you would need to lead to be considered a dominator. Whereas in the 2022 Cup race at the Charlotte Roval, we didn't have any dominators. But we still didn't see anybody really coming from 35th or 36th or 33rd, just because it doesn't. The guys that are slow are guys that aren't good at road courses. I mean, one prime example that I'll just pick on right now, and I like him, I'm a fan of his, is Josh Berry. He's just not a good road course racer. But that's not where he cut his teeth. He cut his teeth on half-mile tracks in the late model stock series all through the South. So he doesn't have a ton of road course experience where you've got an AJ Allmendinger or an SVG that literally grew up running on road courses. So it's hard to compare the two. And kind of knowing that going in, it helps you set up the lineup. So, I don't expect Josh Berry to be in contention. I don't expect him to be running even close to the top 20. The only way Josh Berry has a top 20 run is if absolute pandemonium and chaos breaks out at this race tomorrow. And I just don't think... I think we're going to see chaos, and I think we're going to see some carnage. I don't think we're going to see enough carnage for these guys that are starting in the 30s to really be in play when we're setting our lineups. It kind of the same thing. Now, we have a little bit better movement from the rear, but it also because they either messed up their car in practice and qualifying and had to go to a backup, or they had an issue in their qualifying run. Like Brad Keselowski earlier this year at Sonoma just ended up having bad qualifying spot and was able to work his way to the front. Kyle Busch, I think, had an issue during qualifying or during practice where he had to do some repairs and started to the rear. Same thing with Eric Jones, but they didn't move up. They moved up quite a bit for where they started, but they still weren't in contention to win this race. At Watkins Glen, even with, that was an absolute chaos track this year. We still didn't have anybody coming from in the 30s and making their way to being a contender for top 10s. So just kind of keep that in mind. And this is my fun handy dandy. Let's look at the top 15 point getters for Draftkings points and where they started. Well, the Roval last year only had one person that started 31st or worse to finish in the top 15, and only one person from 21st to 30th. We had 6 people from 21st through 37th or 38th at Watkins Glen make the top 15. Not many made the optimal lineup, but they were there. We had a little bit better showing here. A little bit more chaos happened at the street course in Chicago. So all in all, the average is much more starting from the top 20. Beyond that, so 10 people finish in the top 15 that start in the top 20. So almost 50% of the top 20 make the top 10 in Draftkings points, where the other 5 come from 21st or worse. So it's much more, we're trying to really target that group that, number one, runs really well at road courses and is starting closer to the front and had decent practice sessions. Hopefully that all makes sense. And doing this long enough, you begin to see who's good at the road courses or who's starting to get better at road courses. Like Tyler Reddick used to be awful at road courses. Ross Chastain used to be not very good at road courses. They've learned. They've gotten coaching. They've gotten some of the road course expert guys to teach them how to run road courses. And they do a lot of practice in sim. So that is another piece to the pie. You can still learn a decent amount in the sim. Okay. We didn't have any practice last week at Talladega, so we don't have that information. We're not going to go over it. But guys that underperformed in qualifying, meaning they didn't qualify very well, but were fairly decent in practice, or at least there was a differential between that. And this is something that you can potentially look at as a guide. Like Carson Hocevar was 3rd fastest in single lap speed in practice, and he qualified 20th. Well, if we think he might be the 3rd fastest guy on the track, that means there could be potential of 17 places a place differential. Well, remember, Carson Hocevar did really well at Watkins Glen. Not that it fully transfers over, but Carson Hocevar and Spire Racing have been much, much better. As we can see, Carson Hocevar's teammate, Zane Smith, practiced in 11th, qualified 23rd. Zane also had a very good race at Watkins Glen. So something has started to click over at Spire with their road course ability. OSU and Oregon is a good game. Yeah, it's a very good game. Number 3 against number 2 in the country, both 5-0, and we are down to 7 minutes or so left in this game, and Oregon's up by 1, but Ohio State is driving 15 yards to go. I think looks like they're in the red zone. Nope, just outside the red zone, 23-yard line. Tennessee and Florida is also another good game. That's another one I've got on my other TV over here. So we've got lots of good college football to discuss as we discuss tomorrow's Cup Series race. We'll focus more on the Cup Series race, but either way, yes, always. Every Saturday this year so far has had some really, really good nighttime, primetime games. So very happy about that. Keeps all of us entertained while I just sit here and ramble on about NASCAR and Draftkings. Ryan Blaney was 5th fastest in practice, but qualified 14th. It's potentially 9 different spots. The guys I kind of like in this group, I do like the Carson Hocevar, Zane Smith, Martin Truex Jr. The Noah Gragson, I'm not that worried. I don't think I'll probably play him very much. The Ryan Blaney thing could be kind of intriguing. Austin Dillon, Eric Jones, definitely not interested in. I think Legacy has just mailed it in for this year, along with most of Stewart-Haas Racing other than Briscoe. I think all of these guys are putting all of their eggs into trying to figure out how to make sure they make Briscoe better. And they're not worried. Most of these guys have rides for next year. But I do like the William Byron play. He's very good at road courses. He was 4th fastest in practice and 10th. Busher is always typically pretty good. That's not the correct number. Actually, he's qualified 29th, so he actually should be over here. Not over here. Not sure why that happened. But guys that overperformed in qualifying compared to their practice speeds. For example, Todd Gillen practiced in 31st and then went out and qualified 15th. He's 16 places better than what he practiced. So that's kind of a red flag on something I may want to look at. Same thing with Brad Keselowski. 19th in single lap of practice, and he qualified 8th. So that makes me kind of worried. Now, the Tyler Reddick 12th to 2nd, not that worried about. Daniel Hemrick practiced in 37th, qualified 27th. Now, remember, Daniel Hemrick's 2 teammates are the at least 2 of the top 5 road course racers. AJ and SVG are Daniel Hemrick's teammate. They are going to coach and teach him as much as they can to help him make him a better road course racer. The same thing happened with Justin Haley, and that's why Justin Haley became a much better road course racer, because he was with Colleague last year and the year prior with AJ Allmendinger, so he had a really good road course racer as a coach for 2 years within his organization. Hopefully that makes sense. So this is for single lap. This is for the 5 lap average. I didn't need it to change that. There's my mistake for the week. Always have one. Most people did not do a 10 lap consecutive run, just because practice was only for 20 minutes and it takes almost a minute and a half to get around this track. So very difficult to do a full 10 lap run. A couple guys did do them, but the majority of the drivers did 5 lap runs, except for 3 drivers. And we'll see that when we do the driver by driver breakdown. Yes, fun nights. Hey, James, who did you take last week? Did you take Austin Cindric? Did I miss that you took Cindric or no? I know you said you were unhappy with Cindric, but I didn't know if you took him in your Survivor League or not. And what are your thoughts about who are you going to take for this week? Are you taking SVG, AJ, Tyler Reddick? I can't remember who you've got that are good at road courses. But anyway, so this is the 5 lap consecutive average. That's the same kind of breakdown as before. So guys that we could potentially look at: Chris Buescher, Martin Truex Jr., not worried about Noah, not worried about John Hunter Nemechek. William Byron, he was first and 5 lap consecutive average, qualified 10th. So there is potential of some place differential here. You did take Cindric, but everyone else did too, or McDowell, so it's a wash. Okay, so you, I guess, are saying you survived. So if you're still surviving, who do you plan on taking this week? Interesting minds want to know. Okay, so single lap, straight up, who was fastest in practice? Well, the cream rises to the top. SVG, AJ Allmendinger, Carson Hocevar starting to become a little bit of a surprise, even though in the Truck Series he ran pretty well at road courses. We just didn't get to see a whole lot of it, and he's run road courses in the Cup Series pretty decent. He was third fastest in single lap. William Byron, really good at road course racing. Ryan Blaney is a mixed bag when it comes to road courses. All right, so you can't use AJ. Was hoping you were going to make it easy, and I'll take AJ. Yeah, I mean, if you think everybody else is going to go for SVG, I mean, we could easily see something happen like today in the Xfinity Series where everybody was probably on SVG, including myself. But going back and looking at it, I was like, that's really dumb. Sam Mayer, hands down, was the fastest guy on long run speed in the Xfinity practice. So I should have put more weight behind that. I don't think you've got any William Byron. William Byron could be an interesting pivot, but I'm not sure you really have to pivot in a survival league. Do I have a salary recommendation for this track? Like last week you said, salary doesn't matter. Should I use all or close to it? Well, let's go back and look at some of the other road courses. Sonoma, there was $2,300 left. The Watkins Glen is $500. The Roval was $1,000, and then last year at the Roval was $0. So my recommendation is to almost never use all of your salary cap, because the majority of players, I guess the other thing is depends on if you're playing in large field tournaments or if you're playing in small field tournaments or if you're playing in what we call cash games, which are the 50-50s. So you have to finish in the top half of the tournament and you win money. And typically you only win 50%. You double up. That's pretty much what it is. And then there are double up tournaments. Those get played a little bit differently than the big scale tournaments. You do have Byron, but that's right, you only have one use for Byron. Yeah, I think holding him for Martinsville is probably a better play than taking him here. Even though I think both of them are in play, I just don't know who you would run at Martinsville in his place, because I don't think you have any more Hendrick, and I would make sure that you have a Hendrick going into Martinsville. But Miley, even in the cash tournaments, I think you're still fine not using all of your salary, but I think you probably want to kind of fall in the sweet spot of somewhere between 200 and 800. That's kind of the more sweet spot. I wouldn't leave like $5,000 on the table. I mean, SVG is going to probably be 50% owned tomorrow. AJ is probably going to be 35 to 40% owned tomorrow. Kyle Larson, Tyler Reddick are probably going to be in the 25 or 30% owned. And all of those guys are almost $10,000. So, tournament, salary, yeah, okay. Thanks for explaining. Yeah, so if you're playing in a cash tournament and you want to play a little safer and you want to take all the guys that you think are going to win, you're not necessarily, either they're going to win or they're going to run up front and stay up front. You're not as worried about finding that sleeper, that Justin Haley type of driver that's going to come from the back, unless you just need to save a little bit of salary cap, and then you just try to find the safest play. Cash games are all about playing safe. Tournaments are all about high risk, high reward. Okay, so this was our single lap speed, and then our slowest single lap speed, guys. Yeah, so I'm probably not real interested in much in the four of these guys down here, but they also show up here. So the only cheap option that I really like is Zane Smith. He was very, very fast in practice. He ran really well at Watkins Glen a couple weeks ago. And he practiced well and he qualified 23rd. So we've got some place differential. I think he's trying to get a ride for next year. So he's going to do everything he can to have a really good ride. So I like the Zane Smith play definitely here. Out of this group down here, Kaz would be a sneaky play, but I don't necessarily love where Kaz is starting from. But I do not like Harrison Birding starting in 26. I do not like Daniel Hemrick starting in 27th. The only problem with Josh Bilicki, Josh Bilicki was extremely fast today, but he was in really good equipment. He was in a Joe Gibbs car, and he led laps, and he ran up front, and did all the things. The problem is Josh Bilicki's in the 44, and I'm not even sure who owns the 44. But they're not, I don't know. They're not a charter team. They don't have a whole lot of money. They literally just show up. Yeah, poor John Hunter. Legacy Motor Club is going through a lot of, they're going to be fine. They're going to be good for next year. But that's what they're doing is they've pretty much said they're, at least for what I could tell, they're going to try to run as good as they can, but they are much more setting the organization up for next year. And I think they're just trying to, they're running some different combos in their cars, some setups to potentially be better for next year. Large field, all the money is at the top, so you gotta get different. Sometimes it's only takes a small pivot or two. Absolutely, Andrew. It's Matt, Family Guy, who is knee deep in NFL right now, but he always is looking for that sleeper. When kind of looking at this group here. Zane Smith is not probably going to be a sleeper. Corey LaJoie potentially could be. Ryan Preece is probably the best sleeper in this group, even though I don't really love it. He gives you probably the best option because he's starting in 34th. I think Daniel Hemrick and Harrison Birding are starting too far up. Josh Bilicki, just because he's starting 38th, will get some ownership, but I'm really not interested because I'm not sure the equipment makes it, and we would have to have a ton of chaos and a ton of attrition for Josh Bilicki to finish probably much better than 30th. And I'm not sure 8 spots, even if $5,000 plays that well. But either way, let's get into this driver-by-driver breakdown. Hoping to not make this a 2-hour episode, even though we're 43 minutes in at this point. Boy, time flies when you're having fun. And you got football, and I got great people to chat with. So either way, make sure you guys hit that like and subscribe button. I appreciate you tuning in. Let's get into this. Shane Van Gisbergen, $10,300 starting from the pole. He was first in single lap speed. He was 8th in 5-lap consecutive average. The 3 starts, so this next line here, the 3 starts, this is a 1 top 5, 1 top 10, 1 top 20. He's got an 11.0 Draftkings average and a 21st place average finish. Not that great. So this is why SVG is one of two things either happens. SVG either wins or he falters. So the only reason SVG only has 3 starts but 6 starts here is these are the 5 races we're comparing to, which are the Watkins Glen, Chicago, Sonoma, and Coda from this year, and the Roval from last year. And I was a little leery about leaving the Roval in, other than it is the Roval, because the Roval layout is completely different. So then this next one is the last race at the Charlotte Roval, SVG did not run in. The full history of road courses for SVG is 6 starts, 1 win, 2 top 5s, 3 top 10s, 3 top 20s, 12.3. SVG, he's really, really good. No doubt about it. It is risky to take an SVG, just to be honest. It's either going to go really, really well or it's going to go really, really bad. And you just don't know what you're going to really get. I mean, SVG definitely struggled today after about 5-6 laps. No, Tennessee missed in overtime. No, Florida missed. Okay, so Tennessee's still alive. Tennessee will get a shot. How many people are going to jam in SVG and AJ Allmendinger? Oh, you're going to have people do it. I don't recommend it because you're literally having the first and third. And I'm not opposed to running the pole or outside pole. I would not run... I'm not sure I would run 2 drivers starting first or second or first and third together in the same lineup. It's a little too risky. Either just choose to take Shane and build lineups with Shane in it, or run lineups with AJ in it. That's kind of how I typically, I don't like to have first and second, even though it can happen that the 2 most expensive guys do make it. The problem is taking the 2 most expensive drivers, you really have to start digging really deep and pulling a John Hunter and Josh Bilicki and those types of drivers into your lineups, which become really, really high risk. Now, the payoff could be potentially big, but it's high risk. I don't mind running a Kyle Larson and an SVG, or an AJ and a Kyle Larson in the same lineup. You've got a little bit of place differential to play with Kyle Larson. I like probably taking the Kyle Larson AJ mix, even though they're both 10,000, 10,200, and they're both starting closer to the front. But as we've seen in previous optimal lineups on road courses, you can get 2 drivers that start in the top 10 or even in the top 5. Now, they have to start up there, stay up there, lead some laps, have some fast laps. They've got to do some things to help them out because they're not going to have much place differential points to them. But either way, Kyle Larson starting in 6th. His practice he was 8th in single lap, 7th in 7-lap consecutive average, so very, very consistent, and starting in 6th. And that's kind of what you're looking for when we're starting to look at who do we think is going to start up front and stay up front. First, they're starting up front, and then they also practiced up front. Tennessee touchdown, that should be it. Nope, they're saying second down. They're saying it's short. But Kyle Larson is very, very good at road courses. He's a little bit like SVG. It's kind of like either wins or he doesn't finish really that well. And you're going to kind of need Kyle Larson to finish top 3. He needs to get a podium for him to pay off. He's got 1 win out of the 5 races we're comparing to, with 4 top 20s and a 16.6 average finish. Tennessee touchdown. That's the ball game. Tennessee wins. He's got 37 total starts on road courses with 4 wins, 26 top 20s, 9 top 5s, a 14.2 average finish. So that's pretty good. As we start to go through these, you'll start to see these average finishes. Everybody's about in the same spot. We don't have a whole lot of guys that have top 10 average finishes. There's 1 or 2, but we'll get to them. AJ Allmendinger, the road course ringer, as they call him, very, very good at the Roval. They might as well just name it AJ Allmendinger Roval instead of Charlotte Roval or something. I don't know. Jimmy Johnson pretty much owned this track for a long time in the Cup Series when he was running it. It was called Lowe's Motor Speedway, and he was running the Lowe's car. Real conspiratorial there. But AJ, ever since the road course portion Roval came to about, AJ has been phenomenal. He's got the one win here from at the Roval last year, and the rest of the other 5 races, he's got a 17.4 average finish. 1 top 5, 3 top 10s, 43 total road course starts with 3 wins, 9 top 5s, 22 top 10s. So well over half the time he's finishing in the top 10, and 30 of 43 in the top 20, 15.1 average finish. William Byron, 9,800. He won the COTA race earlier this year at Circuits of the America. And in practice. So, I mean, once again, this is kind of what we're looking for. Starting in 10th, he was 4th in single lap, 1st in 5-lap consecutive average. So very, very good, consistent up front. That's what we're looking for. And he's got the 1 win at COTA earlier this year, 2 top 5s, 3 top 10s, 3 top 20s, a 15th place average finish. He finished 2nd here in this race last year. 31 total starts on road courses with 2 wins, 4 top 5s, 11 top 10s, 20 top 20s, and a 15.7 average finish. As you can see, most of these guys that are good at road courses, this is about their average finish. Chase Elliott's really, really good at road courses also. And once again, starting in 7th, he was 6th in single lap, 2nd in 5-lap consecutive average. He's got a 13.8 average finish of the 5 races we're comparing to. He finished 9th in this race last year. 7 total road course wins out of 34 total starts. But that was mostly in the last gen era car. In this next gen era car, he does not have a win. So just remember that. He's getting much, much better and getting more consistent with this next gen car. So just kind of keep that in mind. Tyler Reddick, who is very good with this next gen car. On road courses, he is starting 2nd. He was 12th in single lap, 4th in 5-lap consecutive average. Oregon. Why did my TV change? I'm now watching the KU Colorado game. Where did the Oregon game go? Weird. I wanted to watch that game. Oh, on the other TV. That's right. That game was on the Florida game. That game's the Oregon game. All right, Oregon's up by 1 now. Good. But Ohio State's at the ball and driving. Tyler Reddick, 9,300. I like Tyler Reddick at this race. I think 2311 is going to do good. Always surprises me. Elliott is the most popular driver. He's so blah and boring in the interviews, not trying to be mean. No, I agree with you. I think it kind of started as because Bill Elliott was the most popular driver for 15 years in a row. And then Dale Jr. came along. And when Bill Elliott retired, everybody went to Jr. And then when Jr. was starting to retire, Chase Elliott came along. And everybody was like, oh, we love Bill Elliott. We like Chase Elliott. And he's just won ever since. I honestly think this year, Kyle Larson knocks him off of that top spot. Mostly because I think part of it is Chase Elliott is somewhat reclusive, if that is probably the right term. He just, which is fine. If they get him started on an interview, he does okay, but he's not flashy by any means. He doesn't want to draw attention to himself. It's not that Kyle Larson does either, but I just think Kyle Larson just kind of fits more of the popular driver. Or, I mean, in my opinion, I thought Corey LaJoie was more popular than Chase Elliott. Or at least he had more of a personality. But yeah, no, Miley, I agree with you. But Tyler Reddick has gotten very, very good at road courses. He finished 6th in this race last year. He was 12th in single lap, 4th in 5-lap consecutive average. He's got 3 wins, and all these 3 wins came in the next-gen era on road courses. So I definitely don't mind. I would not pair him with either AJ or SVG. Like I kind of said before, I think it's just too high risk to run it. Now, it's a little bit better than starting SVG and AJ together because they are both over $10,000. At least Tyler Reddick gives you $700 in savings. So but I just don't like pairing two drivers that are starting in the top 5. The risk is really high. You need a lot of things to go just right. The other thing we really haven't talked about is the points. And are these guys going to run for wins, or are they going to run for points? And I think it's situational for each driver, and depends on how the first stage is actually going, and if we end up getting a caution before we get to the end of the first stage or the second stage. So what'll happen is these cars are easily capable of making it probably to the end of stage 2 without pitting. Now their tire wear is going to become a real concern at that point, and their speeds will have definitely fallen off, but they can make it on fuel. But fresh tires and new tires, pretty much everybody's going to pit either before stage 1 ends or during stage 1 caution. The thing is, if you've got two cars and they're both running the same speed, and with 3 laps to go, the car that's running in second pits before the stage break, they're going to come back out and they're going to blend, 50 seconds behind while we're running 85-second lap times. So they're not in fear of going a lap down. So they'll run, the caution will come out, the field will all close in. Well, this car's still probably 18 spots behind the first place guy, but let's say nobody else pitted before the stage caution came out. Well, everybody's going to come into pit road to take tires and fuel. Well, this guy's only got 2 laps old tires with plenty of fuel to make it to the end of the next stage. He goes right past them all while they're all in the pits. So even the guy that's in first just got passed because the other guy had already pitted. He'll come back out, and now the guy had leapfrogged him. But that becomes very situational. Why does a guy like Byron do then just go for the win? So, no, Byron's, as far as I know, Byron's locked. Byron's locked into the next round. So it's almost like he has a win in the bag. So William Byron can go for the win. So William Byron does not need stage points. So William Byron will 95% chance that William Byron will pit before the end of stage 1. And then he'll pit again before the end of stage 2, because he'll leapfrog anybody else that stays out. Oregon wins by 1. Woohoo! Wow, that's big. Good job, Oregon. So William Byron can go for broke. William Byron can go for the win. He doesn't have to race for points. He's locked into the next round. Like where Chase Elliott's only 13 spots to the good. Chase Elliott finishes 23rd, then it could potentially hurt. Same thing with Tyler Reddick. These are the guys that potentially they have to make a decision, and this is why I said it's very variable on if they come in or they don't come in before a stage break. Because if you can finish first in a stage, that's 10 driver points. Second is 9 driver points. So for Tyler Reddick, if he happens to be leading with 3 laps left in the stage, he's going to go ahead and stay out, because what he's going to do is he's going to bank 10 points. So all of a sudden, this plus 14, if everything stayed equal, he now goes to plus 24. Same thing will happen again in stage 2. If he were, then he would be at potentially plus 34. So then let's say he gets leapfrog at the end of stage 2, with everybody else pitting and doing whatever. He comes out 20th. Well, he lost 19 points, so you take the 34-19, and we're almost back to where we were. But he's got those points banked in, whereas if he didn't get those bonus points from winning or being up front at the stage break, then let's say he came in pitted and came out 20th, did the same thing. Now he's going to leapfrog for the beginning of stage 3, but if he ends up wrecking, he never got any stage points, and now he's still only plus 14, and if he falls to 20th, well, now he's negative points. So that's why I said it's going to be very variable on a person like Tyler Reddick or Chase Elliott that are plus 13 and plus 14. Chris Buescher, not in the playoffs. He doesn't care. He's going to go for the win. So more likely, Chris Buescher will come in and pit before the stage break to hopefully leapfrog some of the guys. The guys that come in before the stage breaks are the guys that are going to be going after the win. Christopher Bell probably will come in for a pit stop before stage 1 and stage 2. Now, for DraftKings, that doesn't matter to us in some instances. What it does matter is because that'll signify and show us that these are the guys that are racing for stage points and don't care about the finish of a race. Whereas a Christopher Bell would love to get another win because he would get 5 playoff points that he could use going into the next round. So he's going to go after the win. So he's going to pit. So Christopher Bell would be one of the ones I would stay is much safer of a play. Where potentially a Tyler Reddick or Chase Elliott might just be stage points racing and trying to go for a decent finish. Not have a blow-up race. Which becomes a little bit scarier for a Tyler Reddick for us because their points are just based on where they finish. They don't lose points because of their place differential, where with DraftKings, we'll lose points if he finishes 8th. Hopefully that makes sense. But Christopher Bell, I think this is probably a decent little top 10. He's got 2 wins on road courses, 1 in the next-gen era. He's got a 15.4 average finish. I mean, like I said, most of these guys that are decent on road courses, this is about where their average finishes are. So, other than like Chase Elliott, who had the 9.8, this is pretty normal. So that's kind of what we're looking for. Ross Chastain, I'm not sure why he doesn't have the 1 win over here because he did not win. He won at Coda, is his only road course win. But remember, at Watkins Glen, he led 50 some odd laps. Miley, there are no dumb questions. What's a better indicator of a driver's true speed for me? Single lap or 5 lap? It's track variable. If we are at a if we are at a Darlington, I'm going to be much more interested in what their 5, 10, 15 lap speed is than their single lap speed, because Darlington is an extremely high tire wear track. So you can go out and blister your first lap, but then by lap 10, you're the 30th fastest guy on the track. Whereas if you go out and you run a 10th fastest lap, but then lap 10, you're still running maybe even 8th, 9th, 10th, 11th, or 12th, that tells me you've got true long run speed. And we're going to see more true long run speed than short run speed. Now, if you really think there's going to be a green-white checker and you think they're going to be potentially up front and you're going for win points, then maybe single lap speed, but there's a lot of things that happen over the course of a race to change the variables. So I like to look mostly at the 10-lap average. Ross Chastain had a lousy 5-lap average at Watkins Glen, but he was first fastest at Watkins Glen, and then he got the pole and he led a ton of laps. So on road courses, I think it's a little bit of a mix of both. On road courses, I like single lap speed with the fallback of, are they also good on the long run? Like we saw some of the guys earlier that literally were, I mean, what was it? Kyle Larson qualified 6th, and he was both top 5 in both single lap and 5 lap, which is, I think, that's a really good variable. He's got decent speed all the way around. I think SVG was in that boat. I think AJ Allmendinger was in the boat. The guys that were fast are fast for a reason. Ross Chastain, he's been running road courses extremely well. 9.6 average finish. So, when we started to look back on these other guys, there's very few people that have single-digit average finishes for road courses, and Ross Chastain is one of them. His practice speeds were not bad. He was 18th in single lap, but he was 11th in 5 lap consecutive average. So not bad. Starting in 16th, we've got some place differential here. He does come in ranked 1 on my ranking system, which takes all of the things into consideration and puts values on it and then spits out the average rank. So he does come in ranked 1st. Michael McDowell, I don't understand what or why Michael McDowell is so good at places like Sonoma, Watkins Glen, and Circuits of the America, but he is just not very good when we come to the Roval. It's head scratching, to be perfectly honest. His practice speeds were not good. He's starting in 21st. I'll have a small amount of Michael McDowell because he does have some decent speed on road courses, but for some reason the Roval just doesn't seem to match up with Michael McDowell, which is really strange because he won the Indy road course kind of Roval configuration in Indianapolis Motor Speedway last year. I guess maybe just doesn't like the banking. I don't know. It's strange. I do like this pick a lot. His practice speeds were not very good, but this is one of his better. Ty Gibbs is. This is probably one of his best layouts. Is the Roval. Not sure why. He does have an Xfinity win here at the Roval. No, he does not. AJ beat him, but he has finished top 3 a lot of times at the Roval. But Ty Gibbs, 8,500, starting in 19th. His practice speeds were not where I'd like to see them. But he's a pretty decent road course racer. Remember when we were looking at all these other guys who are in the 15s? Ty Gibbs is 13.8. And the last 3 of these 5 races that we're comparing to, he's got 3 top 5s, 3 top 10s, 3 top 20s. So, and he's got some place differential. So I like the Ty Gibbs call for DraftKings. Watermelon Man, yep. Kyle Busch, 8,300, starting 11th. Will Kyle Busch win a race before the year's out? I don't know. I think his best shot is still going to be Las Vegas or Homestead. I'm not sure Homestead's probably a good spot. I think Las Vegas might be Kyle Busch's last true opportunity to get a win. But he was 11th. He's starting 11th in qualifying, 14th in single lap, 10th in 5 lap. Not bad. He's got a 12.6 average finish on road courses. He's pretty decent at road courses. I'll have a little bit of ownership because they are going to be going for the win. They're going to pit before the stage breaks. They're going to try to get themselves up front. And, it's still the next-gen car. It's still a road course. It's not easy to pass. You sometimes may have to put the bumper into somebody, and Kyle Busch is not afraid to do that at this point. Alex Bowman, 8,100, starting in 17th. He did win earlier this year at the Chicago Street Course. But once again, single digits for average finish, 9.2 for the 5 races we're comparing to. So keep that in mind. He and Ross Chastain both have really decent average finishes as of late. He finished 8th in this race last year at this track. His practice speeds were okay, and he qualified a little bit worse in his practice. So I do like the Alex Bowman play. He's in pretty good shape on the points. So it's going to be a very interesting variable for him. If he thinks he can get some stage points, he'll take them. But I think he'll also try to set up for a win. So I think he's in a pretty decent spot. But he also might want to bank a couple of points before the stage breaks. So it's going to be very variable for him. If he can get them, he'll take them. If not, then he'll definitely jump down the pit road. Martin Truex Jr. Oh, man. I don't know what to do with Martin Truex Jr. Ton of place differential here. He was 20th and 17th in 5-lap consecutive average. But it's like, oh my God, what has happened to Martin Truex Jr.? I think maybe he's already started fishing. I think he might have hit early retirement. I mean, he's got 53 road course starts, 5 wins, a 15.5 average finish. And then the 5 tracks we're comparing to, he's got a 22.0 average finish. I don't know what to do with Martin Truex Jr. at this point. He scares me, even starting in 30th. But starting in 30th, I don't mind taking the risk. But with that being said, at $8,000, if you're running an SVG and you're running a Tyler Reddick, you're going to need to start saving some money. And Martin Truex Jr. could potentially be a decently safe bet. I mean, all he's got to do is get to 15th. He's going to get you 15 place differential points. So that in the 15th place finish. So I'll definitely take some shots, but I think he's going to be pretty highly owned. Ryan Blaney, $7,800. Starting in 14th, he was 5th in single lap, but he fell off a little bit on his 5-lap consecutive average and fell to 16th. But he's kind of fallen right there with the rest of these guys. And, I mean, Ryan Blaney is really not known as being a real road course expert. He does have 1 win on road courses, but in the last 5 races on road courses, he's only got 2 top 10s and 4 top 20s, which is pretty consistent, but that kind of puts him right where he starts. And that's kind of what Ryan Blaney needs. Ryan Blaney kind of just needs a safe day, kind of like Alex Bowman. They just need to have safe days to get to the next round. So I think Ryan Blaney is going to be perfectly content and happy, not forcing the issue, trying to keep himself out of trouble. Maybe this is somebody who could easily stay out for stage breaks because I don't think he necessarily is going to be a contender to win, which will put him kind of mired in traffic for after both stages. So I don't really love the Ryan Blaney play because of that, because I think he's going to points race. Because the next 3 tracks that come up are much more in Ryan Blaney's wheelhouse. He's pretty good at Las Vegas. He's decent at Miami Homestead. And he's really good at Martinsville. And he's really good at Phoenix. So I think Ryan Blaney's going to play it safe. And I think he finishes where he starts. Daniel Suarez has got to start throwing Hail Marys. He's going to have to throw everything he can at this. He's going to need to get stage points. He's going to need to try to get a win. He's going to need to try to do something. But he's minus 20. So if he potentially is in position to win both stages, well, that's 20 points. That puts him back to 0. Now it becomes really interesting on how far he can make it up. Now, his recent history at road courses is not great. It's 3 top 20s, no top 10s, a 20.6 average finish. He finished 33rd in this race last year. So do I love it with him starting in 13th? No, not really. So, not a huge fan of the Daniel Suarez play. Austin Cindric, on the other hand, who is minus 29, is an absolute, probably must-win situation at this point. In my opinion, I think there's too many guys that are ahead of him that are pretty good at road courses, so Austin Cindric is going to kind of have to go after the win. So, I think he's going to forego stage breaks, and he's going to go for the win. And he was pretty quick. This play reminds me a lot of the Sam Mayer play from earlier today. I think Austin Cindric could play spoiler. So with that being said, at $7,500, I will have some ownership with Austin Cindric. I could see a potential where you throw an SVG, well, but maybe not SVG, because if we think Austin Cindric is going to win, and we're going to build the lineup for an Austin Cindric win, then I take the guys that are starting out first and second. But I maybe pair Austin Cindric up with like a Kyle Larson or a William Byron, who are pretty safe on points that are also going to go for a good, decent finishing spot. So, with that being said, and I'm going to run some lineups that play with Austin Cindric winning. And when I do that, I'm taking out probably the guys that are starting in the top 4 and kind of build from there with some other guys that I think are going to finish well. Joey Logano starting in 4th. I mean, Joey's kind of like Ryan Blaney, but Joey's going to have to do some finagling. He's minus 13. He's going to have to try to go after the win. I think Austin Cindric is a better road course racer than Joey Logano, just sheer talent-wise. And it's mostly a gut feeling. I just don't think Joey Logano. I mean, even if Joey Logano ends up getting a top, let's say he finishes 9th. Well, that just doesn't work for even at $7,300 in Draftkings. So he's always kind of he quietly shows up in the top 10 on road courses, but he's not usually one that challenges for a win on road courses. So just a gut play. I don't think I like the Joey Logano play. Denny Hamlin is awful on road courses, especially in the next gen era. He's only got one top 20 with the 5 races we're comparing to. He finished 37th in this race last year, and this was probably the nail in the. I mean, this was a bad race for him. He's got a 28.4 average finish. With that being said, he's a plus 30. I don't know if Denny Hamlin takes a whole lot of risks when you've got the guys like SVG and AJ Allmendinger and William Byron's that are out there. I mean, if Denny Hamlin feels like something is starting to slip away, but Denny Hamlin's in a pretty good spot on points. So I think Denny Hamlin, kind of like Ryan Blaney, are just going to be content with, let's just get to the next round. Let's just make sure we don't screw anything up here and just make it to the next round. Because if they get to the next round, once again, Denny Hamlin's really good at Homestead. He's pretty good at Las Vegas. He's really good at Martinsville. And he's decent when we get to Phoenix. So I think Denny Hamlin and Ryan Blaney are both going to be... These guys would be cash game plays. They're just not going to do anything to screw themselves up. Now, they could always get taken out by somebody else, but I think they're just going to do whatever they can to not screw anything up. Chase Briscoe, oh boy, starting 25th, and you are an absolute must-win situation here, Mr. Briscoe. Congratulations on the birth of their twins this past week. I thought they were talking about she was going to go into labor 2 weeks ago, so I can't believe she held on that long with twins. Oh my God, poor thing. Starting in 25th, practice speeds was 30th. Denver did a 5-lap consecutive run. He has an average finish of 22.6 at the road courses. Yeah, I mean, but they're going to throw Hail Marys at this. He's got to. Either he wins or his playoff hopes are gone. But I think Austin Cindric's a better play when we get to the, I mean, maybe run a Chase Briscoe, Austin Cindric, but I think if one or the other are behind each other with 2 laps to go, one of them is wrecking the other one. That is pretty. I can't believe that Sam Mayer actually raced Parker Kligerman clean today. That shocked me. But I think Chase Briscoe or Austin Cindric will absolutely wreck their mothers to make it to the next round. So I don't know if the Chase Briscoe is necessarily a safe play, especially since he was slow in practice and slow in qualifying, where Austin Cindric was pretty quick. So Brad Keselowski starting in 8th, has never won on a road course. He's only got 7 top 5s out of 47 total starts with a 16.7 average finish. And in the last 5 races that we're comparing to, which are the most recent next-gen era road courses, he's only got 3 top 20s. And he's starting in 8th. I have no interest in taking Brad Keselowski. Todd Gillen, this is about where he's going to finish, or probably a tick worse. So I just don't like the Todd Gillen play. He was 31st in single lap, 27th in 5-lap consecutive average, so not interested there. Unless we think this is going to be an absolute madhouse, chaos, carnage all over the place. The only problem is Noah Gregson's probably going to be part of that carnage. At $6,600 starting in 32nd. His practice speeds were okay. I'll have some ownership with Noah just because there's a decent amount of place differential, and he has been decent in the Xfinity series on road courses. Never really that great though. But starting in 32nd, the risk is not as great. And I don't think SHR is going to really do a whole lot. Bubba Wallace, 6,500, starting in 9th. I mean, this is an interesting play. He's starting in 9th. He was 9th in single lap, 6th in 5-lap consecutive average. 23:11 teammate Tyler Reddick was pretty quick in both of these. But I trust Tyler Reddick a lot more than I trust Bubba Wallace. But at 6,500, I don't know. I think there's more danger here and risk here with a Bubba Wallace play starting in 9th. I mean, I could see maybe running 5%, and that's only if you're like running 100 lineups. So I don't think I'm going to use very much of him. Josh Berry, we talked about Josh Berry earlier. If we look at his 4 races, because he did not race the Roval last year, 32.3 average finish. Woo-wee. Josh Berry is not good on road courses. 5 total starts with a 25.8 average finish. No top 20s ever. Starting in 36, though, if we think this thing's going to be an absolute S show, maybe take some Josh Berry, starting 2 spots from last. So nowhere to go but up. I do like the Justin Haley play. I don't know why he was slow in practice and the rest of Spire was pretty quick, other than he is probably still adjusting to a new crew chief and the setups may not be exactly where he wants them. But I think he improves greatly from that 33rd starting spot. I think he probably gets to maybe just inside the top 20, which is at 6,300 more than enough for what I need from Justin Haley. So I think this is one of the safer plays from starting from beyond 30th. But yeah, I mean, I don't mind taking the risk with the Justin Haley. I trust the Justin Haley play at a road course more than I trust a Ricky Stenhouse Jr. starting in 24th, who's not very good at road courses. 26th place average finish over the 5 races we're comparing to. He got his win last week, so he's pretty happy. In 41 total starts, he's never had a top 5 and only 2 top 10s. Enough said. Carson Hocevar, $6,100, starting in 20th. I like the Carson Hocevar play. His long run speed was not very good. He was 18th in 5-lap consecutive average. A little unclear because we don't have true data on all of his laps. I mean, I guess I could go find it, but I was at the ball field all day. So, but Carson Hocevar was absolutely god awful at Watkins Glen in practice and ended up finishing 3rd. And I think actually was led a lap or 2. So I don't mind the Carson Hocevar play. I kind of like the Carson Hocevar play. 16.8 average finish for the 5 races we're comparing to. His total 5 starts on road courses with 13.4 average finish. I'll take some shots with Carson Hocevar. Eric Jones. We talked about John Hunter a little bit earlier, but this kind of goes in the same boat. I think there's just too many organizational things that are going on at Legacy right now. They've got new crew chiefs. They've got new car engineers. They've got new... They've pretty much blown everything up over there, hypothetically, and are starting to rebuild all the pieces to start fresh for next year. But Eric Jones is decent on road courses. He's not great. He's decent. He's not 37th. Let's put it that way. So if we're just going to go on the sheer fact of Eric Jones's talent is better than 37th, I think Eric Jones is in play. It's still a little bit risky, but I think the Eric Jones is in play at 37th. I'm not sure I have a ton of him. You know, out of the 40 or 80 laps that I build or whatever, I will probably have maybe 10% of Eric Jones. You know, and just to see what happens. I like the Eric Jones play a little more than I like the Austin Dillon play. Austin Dillon is not very good on road courses. He was decent in practice, but he's got a 24.6 average finish for the 5 races we're comparing to. And he's got a 22.3 average finish out of his 38 total starts, and kind of like Ricky Stenhouse Jr., he has no top 5s, only 1 top 10 with 18 top 20s. So don't love the play with Austin Dillon. Zane Smith, who was decent in single lap, 26th in 5 laps, so he and Carson Hocevar both slowed up a little bit on their long run speeds, starting in 23rd. But as we see, Zane Smith has got a 17.6 average finish for the 5 races we're comparing to, 17.4, and he is trying really hard to have some really good runs so that way he can get himself a ride in the Cup Series for next year or get himself a really good ride in Xfinity. So we should see some pretty good numbers coming from Zane Smith. Corey LaJoie in the 51 car. He is starting 28th. His single lap speed was 28th. His 5 lap consecutive average was 28th. He's got a 17.6 average finish, though, at the 5 road courses that we're looking at. So Corey LaJoie is actually fairly decent at road courses. I don't mind taking some shots with Corey LaJoie. Could be a little bit of a sleeper or sneaky pick, as our buddy Matt likes to call them. Ryan Preece, 5,600, starting in 34th. I mean, kind of in the same boat as Noah Gragson, but I think Ryan Preece is probably about as good at road courses as Josh Berry. I think Josh Berry might be a little bit worse, actually, at this point. But starting in 34th, he was 36th in single lap, 34th in 5 lap consecutive average. I'm still in the belief that they are just hanging on by whatever threads they can get together at Stewart-Haas to get through these next 5 races. And they're putting everything they've got into potentially Chase Briscoe getting on to the next round. And if he doesn't, then I think we start to see a lot of silliness coming out of SHR. My only thoughts about it. Once again, we talked about John Hunter Nemechek. I trust the Eric Jones play starting at 37th a lot more than I trust the John Hunter Nemechek play. John Hunter's got a 26.8 average finish, 24.8 out of his total 6 races, and he's never finished in the top 20. But he's starting in 35th. I still need him to finish better than 20th. So, and I trust the Eric Jones to getting into a top 20 more than I trust John Hunter getting to the top 20. Of course, anything can happen, but odds are. In fact, I think I trust Kaz Grala to get into the top 20 before I trust John Hunter Nemechek. And that's not saying a whole lot because he was 32nd in single lap practice, 35th in 5 lap consecutive average, but his average finishes are 20.3 for 7 total starts. So, Harrison Burton, I think outkicked his coverage. I don't think he finishes any better than 26th. He's got a 25.8 average finish. He finished 24th in this race, so maybe he finishes 24th, but that's still not going to be enough for DraftKings. Daniel Hemrick starting in 27th. He was 37th in single lap, 33rd in 5 lap. He's just not that good at road courses either. He's only got 1 top 20 out of 4 starts, 2 out of 9 total starts for his total career, and it's kind of about where his average finish is about where he's starting. So I mean, unless we just have mass chaos and mass carnage towards the front of the field, I just don't see any of these guys back here doing anything, including Josh Bilicki. And Josh Bilicki is actually, out of the bottom 10 guys, Josh Bilicki is probably the best road course racer. He just never had good equipment. He was in good equipment today for the Xfinity Series, driving the number 19 Joe Gibbs car. And guess what? He raced in the top 5 all day long. I can't remember where he actually ended up finishing. But either way, it's not Josh Bilicki. It's the equipment for him. All right, so guys that I really, really like, Ross Chastain, Chris Buescher, Shane Van Gisbergen, and you could probably mix or match Shane in with William Byron, Kyle Larson, Tyler Reddick, Chase Elliott, AJ Allmendinger. Any of these 5 you could put where Shane is. They're all starting in the top 10. All their practice speeds were in the top 10. They've all won road courses before, including Christopher Bell. So any of these mix and match, but you got to mix and match with 2 or 3 of these guys over here that fit, like a Carson Hocevar at $6,100. Ty Gibbs is really good at road courses and exceptionally pretty good at the Roval. You've got some interesting plays towards the back. Coming from the back, I like the Justin Haley play. I don't mind the Corey LaJoie play. Denny Hamlin's got some place differential, but his recent history has not been good at road courses. Austin Cindric's down here in the orange just because that's where he fell in the rankings, but I do like the Austin Cindric play. But be careful when you build a lineup with Austin Cindric. You need to build it with nobody else really that's starting in the top 5. That's just my only caveat with the Austin Cindric builds. I don't mind the Eric Jones play. I know he showed up in the orange, but he's not a 37th place driver. I think he's better than at least 8 or 9 of these guys. Now, is that going to be enough for Draftkings? I don't know. Maybe. And if we get a little bit of carnage, that could help him out. Other than that, hopefully that's all the information that I really have for this week. Good luck to everyone. We are getting down to the end of this thing. Yeah, I think we've got, who do we have? Is it Homestead or Vegas next? I think it is Las Vegas, if I remember correctly. Let's see. Schedule. That's 25. I want 24. We go to Las Vegas next, then Homestead, then Martinsville. And what time is the 2:30 Eastern? But I think the Xfinity race is a late afternoon or evening race. Let me check that before I say what time I'll be on. Next Saturday at 7 o'clock Eastern is the Las Vegas race. So the race is probably going to end at about or close to the same time I would go live. So shortly after the Xfinity race is when I'll go live for next week. Yeah, not a problem, Miley. I appreciate you tuning in and entertaining us with all the fun emojis. I like them. They're cool. Yeah, good luck to everyone. And yeah, so next Saturday, just keep an eye on the Xfinity race. You always could find some good tidbits that'll pass over to the following race the next day. So we'll do a Xfinity breakdown, and we will discuss the Cup race from Las Vegas next week, who I'm already picking Kyle to beat Kyle. You'll just have to tune in next week to find out which Kyle I'm talking about. There's 2 of them. So, all right, guys, I appreciate you. Let me know if anybody hits a good bag for tomorrow, and enjoy the racing. It should be quite entertaining. All right, thanks, everybody. Have a great weekend. Bye.
Get a good deep breath. Get ready to roll here. Only about one thing tonight, getting the W's, so got to be around at the end to do that. Get ready to roll tonight, boys. Let's go have some fun.
Don't get me any more fired up than I already am.
All the way to the checkered. You are fine. Nobody's got to run. Checker time, baby! Hell yeah! Proud of you there, Matt. Good job, pal. Thanks, man. Good job all day. Great work, my man. Great work. Keep putting yourself in position. We'll win our share, right? We got one back today, brother. Good job. Great job, guys. Excellent work, my man. Excellent work. Thank you.
Man, that's awesome. Set out with a goal, we got it here, bud. Thank you very much.
Really proud of you, man. Drove your butt off tonight. We had the fastest car here, bud.
Probably killed our deal there. Just feel like I gave one away.
Yeah, boys. Way to rebound. Great job. Great job, bud. Really good job. Appreciate you hanging in there with us all weekend. What a weekend. Good job. Thank you.